I sat in the back row of folding chairs, watching my brother Nathan accept his Harvard diploma, while Dad stood at the podium announcing Nathan would inherit our family's $85 million tech company, the $20 million Manhattan mansion, and a brand new Audi R8. Mom beamed, calling him her brilliant son. They'd ignored me for 28 years. Then an elderly woman in a gray suit approached through the crowd, handed me a thick manila envelope, leaned close and whispered, "It's time to tell them who you really are," then disappeared before I could ask questions. My hands shook. I stepped away from the ceremony, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The oak trees on the edge of Harvard Yard provided enough cover for me to open the envelope without anyone watching. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Inside were documents that made my entire world tilt sideways. DNA test results, legal papers with official seals, photographs I'd never seen before, a birth certificate that didn't match the one I'd grown up with. The words blurred at first, then came into sharp focus. Switched at birth. Boston General Hospital. 28 years ago. I wasn't their daughter. I'd never been their daughter. My biological father was Richard Westbrook, a billionaire pharmaceutical CEO who died 3 years ago. The documents showed he'd spent decades searching for me, hiring private investigators, following every lead. He'd left his entire fortune to his missing biological daughter, $200 million. There were photographs of Richard holding a baby at the hospital, the same birthmark on her tiny shoulder that I had on mine. Hospital records documenting the switch. Everything was there, official and undeniable. But the note from Margaret Sutton, the elderly woman who'd handed me the envelope, made my blood run cold. She wrote that my brother Nathan had discovered this truth 6 months ago. He'd known. He'd known and kept silent, because he wanted the inheritance that should have been split, or maybe gone to me entirely. I looked up at the celebration happening 50 yards away. Nathan stood surrounded by admirers, his Harvard cap tilted at a cocky angle, his arm around our father. No, not our father, his father. My legs carried me back to the reception before my brain caught up. People held champagne glasses and laughed. I pushed through them, my vision tunneling until I reached the center where my family stood. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice louder than I intended. Dad turned, his expression already annoyed. "Camilla, not now. This is Nathan's day." "It's about all of our days," I said, pulling the documents from the envelope. "I know the truth." I held up the DNA results, the birth certificate, the photographs. Mom's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the ground. Dad's face went white, then flushed deep red. But Nathan just smiled. That confident, easy smile he'd perfected over the years. He walked over and took the documents from my hands, examining them while people crowded closer, sensing drama. The murmur of confused voices rose around us. Then Nathan laughed, loud and clear, the sound cutting through the whispers. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, holding up the papers. "My sister has always struggled with jealousy. I didn't want to embarrass her today, but she's clearly having some kind of episode." He pointed at the documents. "These are obviously forged. Look at the seal here, the signature there. It's almost impressive how much effort went into this fantasy." A few people chuckled uncomfortably. Others looked at me with pity. Nathan stepped close and wrapped his arm around my shoulders in what looked like a brotherly hug. To everyone watching, it appeared tender and concerned, but his lips were at my ear, his voice a whisper only I could hear. "I'll destroy you before I let you take what's mine. Everything I've worked for, everything I've earned, it's not going to some mistake from a hospital nursery. You're nothing, Camilla. You've always been nothing. And I'll make sure you stay that way." He pulled back, his face a mask of concern for the crowd. "Let's get you home. You need rest." Mom rushed forward, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, Camilla, baby, I'm so sorry everyone had to see this." Dad grabbed my arm firmly. "We're leaving. Now." They walked me to the car like I was a child throwing a tantrum. People stared. Some took photos on their phones. Nathan followed, playing the role of concerned brother perfectly. The drive back to their house in Cambridge was silent, except for Mom's occasional sniffles. I stared out the window, my mind racing. The documents were real. I knew they were real. But Nathan had been so smooth, so convincing. We pulled into the circular driveway of the house I'd grown up in, but never felt was truly home. Now I knew why. It had never been my home. These had never been my people. That night, I lay in my childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling. Around 10 o'clock, my door opened. Nathan stood in the doorway, backlit by the hall light. "Just so we're clear," he said calmly, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. "I found out about the switch 7 months ago. I've spent that time making sure every possible avenue you might use to claim your real inheritance is closed. Margaret Sutton? She won't be found. The law firm handling the estate? They've been given very specific information about fraudulent claims. Your biological father's fortune? It's already being transferred to someone who looks remarkably like you, has your name, and has all the right documentation." "You can't," I whispered. "I already have," he said. "And if you try to fight this, I have enough evidence planted to put you in prison for fraud. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to apologize tomorrow for your breakdown. You're going to admit you made it all up because you were jealous. And then you're going to disappear from our lives quietly. Do that, and I'll let you keep your freedom. Fight me, and I'll take that too." He left, closing the door softly behind him. I lay there in the dark, realizing that my brother, the golden child, the Harvard graduate, was a monster, and he held all the cards. Morning light filtered through my curtains, but I hadn't slept. My phone sat on the nightstand, Margaret Sutton's business card next to it. I had to reach her. She was the only one who could verify everything. I dialed the number with shaking fingers. It rang once, then a recorded message. "This number has been disconnected." My stomach dropped. I tried again. Same message. I pulled up a search on my phone for her law office. The address on her card led me to a building in downtown Boston. I grabbed my keys, slipped out of the house before anyone woke, and drove there through early morning traffic. The address took me to a 4-story brick building in the financial district. I checked the card again. Suite 312. But when I walked inside and checked the directory, there was no Suite 312. The building only had 3 floors. I went back outside, staring at the building. This made no sense. The card, the documents, everything had seemed so official. But Margaret Sutton was a ghost. My phone buzzed. A text from my friend Jessica. "Are you okay? Call me." I drove to Jessica's apartment in Somerville, needing someone to talk to, someone who might believe me. She opened the door before I could knock. "Camilla." She looked uncomfortable, not meeting my eyes. "Come in." Inside, she offered coffee but didn't sit down. She stayed by the kitchen counter, creating distance between us. "What happened yesterday?" she asked. "Nathan called me. He's worried about you." "He called you?" "He said you've been struggling. Showed me some concerning texts you'd sent him. Things about conspiracies and people being out to get you. He thinks you might need professional help." "Jessica, those texts aren't real. Nathan is lying." She bit her lip. "He showed me your messages. Screenshots. And honestly, Camilla, you've seemed off lately. Distant, paranoid." "I'm not paranoid. I found out I was switched at birth. I have proof." "Do you?" she asked gently. "Because Nathan said you'd say that. He said you'd created elaborate fake documents." I pulled out my phone to show her the photos I'd taken of the papers, but my photo gallery was empty. Everything was gone. Nathan had somehow accessed my phone remotely and deleted them. I had photos. I said desperately, I had evidence. "Maybe you should talk to someone," Jessica said. "A therapist. Nathan said he'd help pay for it." I realized then that Nathan had been planning this for months. He'd planted the seeds of doubt about my mental health, isolated me from my friends, made sure no one would believe me when the truth came out. I left Jessica's apartment and sat in my car. I needed to check my bank account, figure out my options. I pulled up my banking app and froze. Balance: $0.00. $14,000. Gone. My savings from years of working retail and office jobs completely drained. I checked my credit cards, all maxed out with charges I'd never made. Purchases at stores I'd never visited, in cities I'd never been to. I called the bank, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. "I need to report fraud," I told the representative. "Someone's stolen all my money." "I see recent activity on your account," the woman said. "Password and security questions were changed yesterday. We'll need to start an investigation, but that typically takes 30 business days." 30 days? I have nothing. I can't wait 30 days. "I'm sorry, ma'am. That's our policy." I ended the call and counted the cash in my wallet. $67. That was everything I had in the world. I drove back toward Cambridge, trying to think. But when I reached my parents' street, I saw police cars in the driveway. 2 officers stood on the porch talking to Dad. I parked down the block and walked up carefully. One officer saw me and his hand went to his belt. "Camilla Morrison?" he asked. "Yes? We need to ask you some questions about allegations of identity theft and fraud." Nathan appeared in the doorway behind Dad. "Officers, thank you for coming so quickly. I hated to do this, but my sister needs help." The next 2 hours were a nightmare. Nathan claimed I'd stolen documents from his office at the family company, created fake inheritance papers, and tried to extort money from the family. He played the concerned brother so perfectly, suggesting I needed psychiatric evaluation rather than jail time. The police questioned me, but I had no way to prove my innocence. The envelope was missing from my room. My phone had been wiped. Margaret Sutton didn't exist. Mom cried, saying she didn't know what had happened to her daughter. Dad stood with his arms crossed, disappointed as always. Nathan just looked at me with those cold eyes, a slight smile on his lips. The police left with a warning. If I continued to harass the family or make false claims, they'd arrest me for harassment and fraud. I went to my room to pack a bag, but Dad stopped me at the stairs. "You're not welcome here anymore," he said. "Pack your things and be out by tonight." I threw clothes into a duffel bag with shaking hands. This couldn't be happening. But it was. Nathan had thought of everything. I tried to check into a motel that evening, but the credit card I used was declined. Nathan had canceled it. The manager, sympathetic at first, grew cold when the card didn't work. He asked me to leave. I slept in my Honda in a Walmart parking lot, using my coat as a blanket. The $67 in my wallet was all that stood between me and complete destitution. The next morning, I went to a public library as soon as it opened. I needed to research, to find information about Richard Westbrook's estate, to figure out how to reach the law firm handling it. I found his obituary online. It mentioned a daughter whose whereabouts were unknown. It listed the law firm, Pemberton and Associates in Manhattan. Manhattan was a 3-hour drive. I had no money for gas, no money for tolls, nothing. But I had to get there. It was my only chance. I started walking. Maybe I could hitchhike part of the way. Maybe I could find someone to help. I made it 5 miles before my feet were covered in blisters, and exhaustion overtook me. I sat on a bench at a bus stop, my head in my hands. This was impossible. Nathan had won. He'd taken everything from me and made sure I had no way to fight back. A police car pulled up to the curb. 2 officers got out and walked toward me. My heart sank. "Camilla Morrison?" "Yes. You're under arrest for embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent." They handcuffed me right there on the street while people stared. I didn't even have the energy to protest. Nathan had moved to the next phase of his plan. At the station, they showed me the evidence. Nathan, as CFO of the family company, had created accounting records, showing I'd embezzled $120,000 over the past year. He'd forged my signature on bank transfers to an account in my name that I'd never opened. The documents looked real. The evidence was convincing. Even I might have believed it if I didn't know the truth. A public defender was assigned to my case. He looked about 12 years old and carried 3 overstuffed case files under his arm. He spent 10 minutes with me, said the evidence was strong, and suggested I consider a plea deal. Bail was set at $50,000. I laughed bitterly. I couldn't even afford $50 at this point. They took me to a cell. The walls were concrete gray. A thin mattress lay on a metal bench. I sat down and finally let myself cry. 3 days passed. My court date was set for 2 weeks away. I had no plan, no options, no hope. Then something unexpected happened. A woman in her late 60s was brought into my cell. She had silver hair cut in a neat bob and sharp, intelligent eyes. Her name was Dorothy. Contempt of court, she explained, when I asked why she was here. I told a judge he was an incompetent fool. Turns out you can't do that, even when you're right. We talked. I told her everything. I had nothing to lose. Dorothy listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I believe you, she said finally. You do? I was a judge for 32 years before I retired. I've seen enough liars to know the difference. You need to get to that law firm in Manhattan. That's your only chance. I can't. I'm in jail with no bail money. Dorothy smiled. I may be here for contempt, but I still have friends, and a rather substantial pension. She made a phone call, using her one allowed call. The next day, my bail was mysteriously paid. When I was released, I found a note in my belongings. Union Station, Track 7, noon train to New York City, ticket waiting under Morrison. I wanted to thank Dorothy, but she'd already been released on her own recognizance that morning. I never got to see her again. I went to Union Station, my heart pounding. At the ticket counter, they found the reservation. First-class ticket to Penn Station, departing in 20 minutes. Someone believed me. Someone was helping me. I boarded the train as it began to rain outside. Boston disappeared behind me as we headed south. I pressed my forehead against the cold window and allowed myself a tiny spark of hope. Penn Station was chaos. People rushed in every direction. Announcements echoed overhead, and the smell of pretzels and coffee filled the air. I clutched my duffel bag and followed signs to the subway. The address for Pemberton and Associates led me to a gleaming tower in Midtown Manhattan, 50th floor. I rode the elevator up, my stomach churning with nerves and hope. The reception area was all glass and chrome, with leather furniture and abstract art on the walls. A young woman sat at the front desk, her makeup perfect, her suit crisp. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked when I approached. "No, but I need to speak with someone about Richard Westbrook's estate. I'm his daughter." Her expression changed instantly. She picked up the phone, spoke quietly, then asked me to wait. She gestured toward a chair, but I was too nervous to sit. 15 minutes later, a door opened, and a man in his 60s stepped out. His suit probably cost more than I'd earned in the past year. His gray hair was perfectly styled, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. "I'm James Pemberton," he said, not offering his hand. "Please come with me." He led me to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking, but his expression was not. "You said you're Richard Westbrook's daughter," he began, sitting across from me at the long table. "Yes. I only found out a few days ago. I was switched at birth. I have documents." "Where are these documents?" "They were stolen. But there's an attorney, Margaret Sutton, who had them. She gave them to me." James's face hardened. "Miss Morrison, we've dealt with several fraudulent claims regarding Mr. Westbrook's estate. It's quite substantial, which attracts certain types of people. I'm not lying. I'm his daughter. We can do a DNA test." "That won't be necessary," he said coldly. He pulled a folder from the briefcase beside him and opened it. The inheritance was already claimed 2 months ago by Richard's daughter. My heart stopped. "What?" He turned the folder toward me. Inside were legal documents, official seals, signatures, and a photograph. The woman in the photo looked about my age. She had dark hair like mine, similar bone structure, but it wasn't me. "This is Camilla Westbrook," James said. She provided extensive documentation, DNA evidence, everything required. The estate has been settled. $200 million transferred to her accounts. "That's not me," I said, my voice breaking. "Someone is impersonating me. My brother Nathan set this up." "Your brother?" "He found out about the switched birth before I did. He hired someone to pose as me and steal the inheritance." "You have to believe me." James closed the folder. "Miss Morrison, the woman who claimed the inheritance underwent extensive verification. We're not amateurs. The FBI is already investigating irregularities, but the money has been transferred to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. If what you're saying is true, your brother has committed federal crimes. But I need proof. Can you prove you're Richard Westbrook's biological daughter?" "I had documents. They were stolen." "Then I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do. If you obtain proof, come back. But I must ask you to leave now. Security will escort you out." 2 security guards appeared as if summoned. They weren't rough, but they made it clear I had no choice. They walked me to the elevator and watched as the doors closed. I stood in the descending elevator, my reflection staring back at me from the polished metal walls. I looked hollow, defeated. Outside, dusk was falling over Manhattan. The city lights were beginning to glow. People rushed past me on the sidewalk, everyone with somewhere to go, someone to be. I had nothing, and no one. I walked aimlessly for hours. My feet ached. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten all day. The few dollars in my pocket wouldn't go far in New York City. I found myself in Bryant Park, behind the New York Public Library. It was after 9, and the park was mostly empty. I sat on a bench, staring at the fountain, trying to figure out what to do next. "Excuse me." I looked up to see a woman in her early 40s standing before me. She wore an elegant navy dress, her hair pulled back in a neat twist. She looked professional, trustworthy. "Are you Camilla Morrison?" she asked. "How do you know my name?" "Margaret Sutton sent me before she went into hiding. My name is Dr. Helen Morrison. I'm a psychiatrist and a friend of Margaret's. She suspected your brother would retaliate, and she was right. She asked me to help you if things went wrong." Hope flared in my chest. "You know about everything?" "I do. And I have evidence that proves your identity. Documents Margaret saved. But it's not safe to discuss here. My apartment is 6 blocks away. Please, come with me. You look exhausted. Let me help you." I should have been suspicious. I should have questioned how she found me, why Margaret would send a psychiatrist. But I was desperate and exhausted and completely out of options. "Okay," I said. We walked through the Manhattan streets. She made pleasant conversation, asking about my day, expressing sympathy for what I'd been through. She seemed so genuine, so kind. Her building was upscale, with a doorman who nodded at her. We took the elevator to the 8th floor. Her apartment was beautiful, all clean lines and expensive furniture. "Sit down," she said, gesturing to a cream-colored sofa. "Let me make you some tea. You must be exhausted." I sat, my body sinking into the soft cushions. She disappeared into the kitchen. I heard water running, the clink of cups. She returned with 2 mugs on a tray. The tea smelled like chamomile and honey. I was so thirsty I took a large sip immediately. "The documents are in my office," she said, gesturing toward a closed door. "Let me get them for you." I drank more tea, grateful for the warmth spreading through my chest. But then the warmth became heaviness. My limbs felt weighted down. The room began to blur at the edges. "What?" I tried to say, but my tongue was thick. Dr. Helen Morrison's face changed. The kindness disappeared, replaced by cold calculation. "Nathan pays very well," she said, watching me struggle to stand. "Much more than I make as an actual psychiatrist, though I am licensed, if that makes you feel better." Everything you're about to experience will be professionally documented. I tried to move toward the door, but my legs gave out. I collapsed onto the carpet. The last thing I saw was Helen standing over me, phone to her ear saying, "I have her. Send the transport." Then everything went black. I woke to whiteness. White walls, white ceiling, white sheets on the narrow bed beneath me. The smell of antiseptic burned my nostrils. My head pounded, and my mouth tasted like chemicals. I tried to sit up, but my body felt disconnected from my brain. Everything moved in slow motion. "Easy there," a voice said. A nurse stood in the doorway. She wore pale blue scrubs and had tired eyes. She checked something on a clipboard, then looked at me with what might have been pity. "Where am I?" My voice came out as a croak. "Riverside Mental Health Institute. You were admitted last night. Involuntary commitment. Your family was very worried about you." "No." I tried to get out of bed, but she stopped me with a gentle hand. "You need to rest. The medication needs time to wear off. The doctor will see you this afternoon." "I don't need medication. I'm not supposed to be here. My brother did this. He's trying to silence me." The nurse made a note on her clipboard. "The doctor will discuss everything with you." She left, locking the door behind her. I heard the click of the lock like a death sentence. I spent the next hours pacing the small room, trying to clear my head. Through the tiny window, I could see trees and a parking lot. Somewhere upstate, far from the city, far from anyone who might help me. Around 2 in the afternoon, a man in a white coat entered. He was 50-ish, with wire-rimmed glasses and a professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Camilla, I'm Dr. Raymond Palmer. How are you feeling?" "I shouldn't be here. This is false imprisonment." He sat in the room's only chair and made notes in a file. "Your parents signed commitment papers. They say you've been experiencing delusions, paranoia, and erratic behavior. They're very concerned. It's not delusions. I found out I was switched at birth. I'm trying to claim my inheritance. My brother is trying to stop me by having me locked up." More notes. His expression never changed, never showed belief or doubt, just that professional blankness. These beliefs about being switched at birth, about a secret inheritance, when did they begin? They're not beliefs, they're facts. "I see. And your brother? You believe he's persecuting you?" "He is persecuting me. He drugged me, stole my money, framed me for crimes I didn't commit." Dr. Palmer nodded slowly. "I'm going to recommend an extended evaluation period, 72 hours minimum, possibly longer. We need to get you stabilized." "I don't need to be stabilized. I need to get out of here." He stood. "That's not possible right now. Try to rest. We'll talk again tomorrow." Days blurred together. They gave me medication that made me foggy and slow. I refused to take it after the first day, holding the pills under my tongue and spitting them out when the nurses left. But that meant enduring withdrawal symptoms, shaking and nausea that left me weak. On the 4th day, I met Grace. She was in her mid-30s, with short red hair and sharp green eyes that seemed too alert for someone supposedly mentally ill. We were in the common room, a depressing space with worn furniture, and a television that only got 3 channels. Grace sat down next to me and spoke quietly. "You don't belong here," she said. "What makes you say that?" "Because I don't belong here either. I'm a journalist. I was investigating corruption in the state healthcare system. Someone paid to have me committed. I've been here 8 months. My blood ran cold. 8 months? The court always sides with the doctors. And the doctors get paid very well to keep certain patients. You won't leave until someone on the outside fights for you. Do you have anyone?" I thought of Dorothy, who'd helped me get to New York. I thought of Margaret Sutton, who'd disappeared. I had no one. "There might be someone," I said slowly. "A retired judge. She helped me once." Grace glanced around to make sure no one was watching, then pulled a phone from her pocket. A smuggled cell phone, against all facility rules. "Make it quick," she said. I searched for Dorothy's name, found an article about her contempt charge. The article mentioned her daughter, Amanda Walsh, a civil rights attorney in Boston. I called the number listed for Amanda's law office. A receptionist answered. "I need to speak with Amanda Walsh. It's urgent. It's about her mother, Dorothy." "One moment." A woman's voice came on the line, sharp and professional. "This is Amanda Walsh. Who is this?" I explained as quickly as I could, the words tumbling out. The switched birth, Nathan's conspiracy, my false commitment. I mentioned Dorothy, how she'd helped me. "My mother told me about you," Amanda said. "She said you were in trouble. I'm sorry I couldn't help sooner. Where are you exactly?" "Riverside Mental Health Institute. Somewhere upstate. I know it. I'll file an emergency motion. Hold tight." She hung up. Grace took the phone back, hiding it in her clothes. "You might actually get out," she said. "I hope you do. Get your freedom, then burn down whoever put you here." 2 days later, I was taken to a small room with a video screen. A court hearing, I was told, conducted remotely. On the screen, I saw a courtroom. Nathan sat at a table with my parents. They all wore somber expressions, the picture of a concerned family. A judge sat at the bench, reviewing papers. Dr. Palmer appeared on camera, testifying about my delusions and need for long-term treatment. He recommended 6 months of involuntary commitment. My chest tightened. 6 months. Half a year in this place. By then, Nathan would have hidden the money so deep it would never be found. By then, I'd be completely discredited, maybe actually lose my mind. The judge looked ready to rule when the courtroom doors opened. A woman in a sharp gray suit strode in, carrying a briefcase. "Your Honor, Amanda Walsh appearing for the respondent. I'm filing an emergency motion to dismiss these commitment proceedings." The judge frowned. "On what grounds?" "Evidence of fraud. I have documentation showing this commitment was arranged by the patient's brother to prevent her from pursuing a legitimate legal claim. I request an independent psychiatric evaluation and immediate release pending that evaluation." Nathan's lawyer objected. The judge asked questions. Amanda presented papers, argued points of law, pushed back against every objection. Finally, the judge ruled. "I'm ordering the patient transferred to a state facility for an independent evaluation. Commitment at Riverside is suspended pending that evaluation." It wasn't freedom, but it was something. I'd be moved, examined by doctors who hadn't been paid off by Nathan. They transferred me that afternoon. I was handcuffed, put in an ambulance with a driver and a medical attendant. We drove for about 20 minutes, heading toward what I hoped was the state facility. Then the ambulance suddenly swerved off the road. We bumped along rough terrain, branches scraping the sides. The driver slammed on the brakes. The back doors flew open. 3 men in ski masks stood there, silhouetted against afternoon light. "Get her out," one of them said. The medical attendant held up his hands. "What is this?" One of the masked men pulled out a gun and pointed it at the attendant. "You stay there. Don't move. Don't call anyone for 10 minutes. They grabbed me, pulled me out of the ambulance. I screamed, fought, kicked at them. One punched me in the stomach, knocking the wind out of me. They dragged me toward a black van parked in the trees. This was it. Nathan's final solution. They were going to kill me and make my body disappear. I screamed louder, thrashing against their grip. This couldn't be how it ended. I'd come so far, survived so much. Suddenly, the air filled with the sound of sirens and the thump of helicopter blades. Cars came out of nowhere, surrounding us. People in FBI windbreakers jumped out, weapons drawn. "Federal agents. Let her go. Hands up." The masked men released me and tried to run. They didn't make it 10 feet before they were tackled and handcuffed. A woman agent ran to me, helped me up. "Are you hurt?" "I don't understand." "How did you know?" "We've been following you for days. We'll explain everything. You're safe now." They led me to one of the vehicles. I looked back at the ambulance, at the chaos of agents and flashing lights. For the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I might survive this after all. The FBI field office in Manhattan was nothing like I'd imagined. It was sterile and bureaucratic, with fluorescent lights and worn carpet. They took me to a small interview room and brought me coffee and a sandwich. The food was cafeteria quality, but I ate like I hadn't seen food in weeks. Maybe because I barely had. The woman agent who'd helped me sat across the table. She was in her late 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and intelligent brown eyes. "I'm Special Agent Sarah Barrett," she said. "I lead the team investigating Nathan Morrison and the Westbrook inheritance fraud." "You've been investigating Nathan?" "For 3 months. The fraud involving Richard Westbrook's estate triggered multiple federal crimes: wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering. When you were first arrested in Boston, we flagged your case. We've been tracking you since then. You let me go to jail. You let me be committed to a psychiatric facility." Her expression was apologetic. "We needed to see how far Nathan would go. We needed evidence of his criminal conspiracy. I know that sounds cold, but we had to build an airtight case. Those men were going to kill me. We had surveillance on you the entire time. We wouldn't have let that happen. The men have been arrested. They're already talking, giving us information about who hired them." She opened a folder and spread papers across the table. Bank records, emails, photographs. Evidence of Nathan's crimes laid out in black and white. "Your brother is a sophisticated criminal," Sarah said. "He's been doing this for years. The Westbrook fraud isn't his first. We've found evidence of at least 3 other inheritance schemes, smaller scale, but with the same pattern. He identifies people with unclaimed inheritances, finds ways to steal them. Can you arrest him?" "We're building toward that, but we need your testimony. You're the key witness." "I'll testify. I'll do whatever it takes." Sarah's expression grew more serious. "There's something you need to see first." She pulled out more documents. "Nathan has been very careful. He's created a trail of evidence that frames you as his accomplice." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Fabricated emails between you discussing the fraud. Text messages, supposedly from your phone, planning how to impersonate Richard's daughter. Bank records showing payments to you. He set it up so if we arrest him, he can claim you were the mastermind and he was coerced into helping you." "That's insane." "None of that is real." "I know, but it's convincing enough to create reasonable doubt. A good defense attorney could argue that you were the real criminal and Nathan was your victim. So what do I do?" "You cooperate with us fully. We need you to help us prove Nathan acted alone. But I have to be honest with you, Camilla. Right now, you're facing potential federal charges too. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering. You could be looking at 10 years in prison." The room spun. "After everything, I might still end up in prison for crimes I didn't commit." "I didn't do anything wrong," I whispered. "I believe you. But belief isn't the same as proof." We talked for hours. I told them everything I knew, every detail of Nathan's plan. But without the original documents from Margaret Sutton, without evidence that couldn't be dismissed as fabricated, my word meant nothing. Around 6 in the evening, a different agent entered the room. He was younger, maybe early 30s, with sandy hair and a serious expression. "Special Agent Thomas Brady," he introduced himself. He looked at Sarah. "Can I have a moment with Miss Morrison? Alone?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded and left. Thomas sat down and leaned forward. "I've been working a parallel investigation. I think you're innocent. More than that, I think I can prove it." "How?" "Margaret Sutton isn't missing. She's in witness protection." My heart raced. "She's alive?" "Yes. Richard Westbrook's estate attorneys suspected fraud before the fake Camilla claimed the inheritance. Margaret went into hiding with evidence, including the original documents she gave you. She's been too afraid to come forward because Nathan has been looking for her. But I found her, and she's willing to testify. Then we can stop him. There's a problem. Nathan knows where she is. We intercepted communications, showing he's hired people to find her. We need to move her immediately, tonight. But we need your help. Anything. We want you to contact Nathan. Pretend you're broken, defeated. Offer to make a deal. Say you'll take the fall for everything if he pays you to disappear. We'll wire you. Record the conversation. If he admits to any part of the fraud, we can arrest him immediately. He'll know it's a trap. Maybe. But he's arrogant. He thinks he's outsmarted everyone. We're betting his ego will make him careless. I thought about Nathan's face at Harvard graduation, his whispered threats, his complete confidence that he'd won. Thomas was right. Nathan believed he was untouchable. I'll do it. They set up the meeting for the next evening. A restaurant in Soho, public enough to be safe but private enough for real conversation. They fitted me with a tiny camera disguised as a button and a microphone so small I couldn't even see it. Just get him talking, Thomas coached me. Let him gloat. Men like Nathan can't resist explaining how clever they are. I practiced what I'd say, how I'd act. Defeated, desperate, willing to do anything. It wouldn't be hard to pretend. I felt all those things. The next evening, I walked into the restaurant on shaky legs. Nathan was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking relaxed in an expensive suit. He smiled when he saw me. Camilla, you look terrible. I sat down, making my hands shake visibly. I can't do this anymore, Nathan. You win. I won a long time ago. The FBI is investigating. They think I'm involved. I could go to prison. You probably will. He sipped his wine, completely calm. Unless you help me, give me money, enough to disappear, I'll take responsibility for everything. I'll say it was all my idea. He laughed. Why would I do that? You're already taking the fall. You already look guilty. Because I'm your sister. You're not my sister. You're a stranger who happened to grow up in my house. A mistake. Then do it because it's cleaner. One confession. Case closed. You're free. He considered this, swirling his wine. How much? $500,000. He laughed harder. Absolutely not. Nathan, please. He leaned forward, and I could see the cruelty in his eyes. Do you want to know how easy this was? How I found out about the switched birth? How? I was doing genetic testing for fun. 23, and me. One of those ancestry things. I didn't match with you or our parents. I got curious, did some research, hired investigators. When I found out about Richard Westbrook and his missing daughter, I couldn't believe my luck. So you stole my inheritance. I stole nothing. That money was never yours. You didn't even know it existed. I found a woman, Teresa, who looked enough like you. I gave her the documents, coached her through the lawyer's questions. She was very convincing. We split the money, and she disappeared to South America. And you framed me. I protected myself. You were a loose end. When Margaret Sutton tried to give you those documents, I had to act fast. Everything I did, the bank accounts, the false evidence, the commitment papers, it was all just good planning. He was confessing to everything. The camera was recording. The FBI was listening. But then Nathan leaned even closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. I know you're recording this, Camilla. My blood turned to ice. He smiled. Did you really think I'd fall for such an obvious trap? The FBI, they're so predictable. As he said it, I felt something wrong. My vision blurred at the edges. The water I'd been drinking, I'd seen him near it while the waiter delivered menus. He'd put something in it. What did you do? I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. Just a mild sedative. Nothing dangerous. But enough to make you seem unstable on the recording. Enough to make your testimony worthless. I've already called my lawyers. They'll argue entrapment, coercion, that you were impaired during this meeting. The FBI agents burst through the restaurant doors, but it was too late. I was collapsing, the room spinning. The last thing I saw was Nathan's triumphant smile as the agents grabbed him. Then darkness swallowed me whole. The hospital smelled like bleach and bad coffee. I woke up slowly, my head throbbing. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. My mouth tasted like cotton and chemicals. Agent Sarah Barrett sat in a chair beside my bed, her face grim. How long? I asked. 2 days. The sedative Nathan gave you was stronger than he probably intended. You've been in and out of consciousness. Did you arrest him? We did, but he was released this morning. I tried to sit up too fast and immediately regretted it. What? His lawyers filed motions, arguing the recording is inadmissible. They claim you were impaired during the conversation, making anything he said coerced or unreliable. The judge agreed there are enough questions about the tape's validity to exclude it from evidence. But he confessed. You heard him. I heard him. But the law doesn't care what I heard if the recording can't be used in court. His legal team is good, Camilla. Really good. They've already filed counter-accusations against you, painting you as a disturbed woman trying to frame her successful brother. I'm going to be sick. Sarah held up a basin, but I waved it away. The nausea passed, replaced by crushing despair. It gets worse, she said quietly. Nathan's lawyers have launched a media campaign. They've given interviews to major news outlets. The story is everywhere. She pulled out her phone and showed me. My face was on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. The headlines were brutal. Woman accused of elaborate inheritance fraud. Sister attempts to destroy Harvard graduate's life with false claims. Mental health crisis? Or criminal mastermind? Your parents gave an interview, Sarah said. She played a video on her phone. Mom and Dad sat on a talk show set, looking devastated. Mom dabbed her eyes with a tissue. We don't recognize the daughter we raised, Dad said. Camilla has always struggled with jealousy of her brother's success, but we never imagined she'd go this far. We just want her to get help, Mom added. We've tried everything, but she refuses to accept reality. The host nodded sympathetically. And your son, Nathan? How is he handling this? He's heartbroken, Dad said. He loves his sister despite everything. He's hoping she'll accept treatment, and they can rebuild their relationship someday. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. Sarah turned it off. They've filed a restraining order against you. You're not allowed within 500 feet of any of them. The embezzlement charges from their company are still active. And now, federal prosecutors are reviewing the evidence Nathan provided, showing you were involved in the Westbrook fraud. So he wins. After everything, Nathan wins. Not yet. We still have Margaret Sutton. You said she's too afraid to testify. She was. But after you were poisoned, she's changed her mind. She's willing to come forward. The problem is getting her here safely. Nathan has people watching for her. We need to move her from witness protection without tipping him off. How can I help? You can't. You need to stay here, recover. Let us handle this. But I could see the doubt in her eyes. She didn't think they could protect Margaret. She didn't think they could beat Nathan. After Sarah left, I lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. My entire life had been erased. I had no family, no friends, no money, no reputation. Even if we somehow proved Nathan's guilt, the damage was done. The public believed I was a criminal, or mentally ill, or both. A nurse brought me mail. One envelope, no return address. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a key and a handwritten note on expensive stationery. Storage Unit 247, Queens Boulevard Self-Storage. Richard saved everything, including his DNA. M.S. Margaret. She'd left me one final gift. DNA evidence. Real, scientific proof that I was Richard Westbrook's daughter. Proof that couldn't be argued away or dismissed. I had to get to that storage unit. But how? I was in a hospital, probably being watched by Nathan's people. The FBI would want to control how the evidence was collected and preserved. I couldn't wait for proper procedures. Nathan's lawyers were too good, too fast. They'd find a way to challenge or suppress even DNA evidence if they had time to prepare. That night, I faked a medical emergency. When nurses rushed in, I slipped out of bed and grabbed clothes from the closet. A visitor had left a jacket on a chair. I took it. I walked out of the hospital during shift change, when the halls were busiest. No one stopped me. Outside, I had no money for a cab or subway. I started walking. It took me 3 hours to walk from the hospital in Manhattan to the storage facility in Queens. My feet were blistered, my hospital bracelet still on my wrist, but I made it. The facility was one of those long buildings with garage-style doors, protected by a fence and a keypad. The key Margaret had sent me opened the pedestrian gate. I found Unit 247 in the back corner. The key turned smoothly in the lock. The door rolled up with a metallic rattle. Inside were dozens of cardboard boxes. I pulled the string for the overhead light and started searching. Files, photographs, personal belongings. Richard Westbrook's entire life, packed away and preserved. I found what I was looking for in a small medical lockbox. Vials of blood, labeled and dated, from Richard's last hospital visit before his death, preserved for DNA testing. There was also a flash drive. I pocketed both and kept searching. Margaret had saved everything. I needed a computer. I closed the unit and walked until I found a public library. It was early morning, just opening. I logged onto a computer and inserted the flash drive. It contained hours of video files. I clicked on the first one. Richard Westbrook appeared on screen. He was in his 60s, thin from illness, but his eyes were sharp and kind. "This is entry 112, he said. March 15th, 2019. Another dead end today. The investigator I hired found 3 women born on the same day at Boston General, but none of them are her. I know my daughter is out there. I can feel it." I clicked through more videos. Years of searching, of never giving up hope, photos of me at various ages, taken from a distance. He'd been watching over me, protecting me from afar. Then I found the smoking gun. A video dated 8 months ago. "I received a call today," Richard said, looking older, sicker. "A young man named Nathan Morrison contacted me. He claims to be my daughter's brother. He knows about the switched birth. He wants money to help me find her." No. Nathan had contacted Richard before his death. "I'm meeting with him tomorrow," Richard continued. "He seems sincere. He says his sister, Camilla, never fit in with the family. He's noticed traits that match mine. He wants to help reconnect us. I'm hopeful, but cautious." The video ended. I searched frantically for more. The next entry was dated 2 days later. Richard looked devastated. Nathan Morrison was lying. He wanted money to keep quiet about the switched birth. He threatened to make sure Camilla never learned the truth unless I paid him $5 million. I refused. My lawyers are investigating him. I've instructed that if anything happens to me, they should protect Camilla at all costs. There were emails attached to the files, correspondence between Richard and his investigators, evidence of Nathan's attempted blackmail, proof that Nathan had known about the inheritance and tried to extort Richard before his death. This was it. This was everything we needed. I uploaded all the files to a cloud account. I emailed them to Sarah Barrett at the FBI, to Amanda Walsh, to major news outlets, to everyone I could think of. Then I heard voices outside the library. Through the window, I saw them. Nathan, with 2 men. They were checking the entrance, searching. He'd found me. I grabbed the flash drive and the blood vials and ran for the back exit. The alarm shrieked as I pushed through the emergency door. I sprinted down the alley behind the building. I heard footsteps pounding behind me. Nathan was shouting. They were catching up. I turned a corner and ran straight into traffic. Horns blared. A taxi screeched to a stop inches from me. The driver yelled. I yanked open the door and threw myself inside. "Drive. Please, just drive." The driver, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, looked at the panic on my face and hit the gas. We shot forward into traffic. Through the rear window, I saw Nathan standing in the street, furious and defeated. "Where to?" the driver asked. I gave her the address of the FBI field office. As we drove, I clutched the blood vials and flash drive to my chest. This was it, the evidence that would finally destroy Nathan and prove who I really was. But I'd learned not to hope too much. Nathan had escaped every trap so far. He had resources, lawyers, connections. This wasn't over yet. The taxi pulled up to the FBI building. I didn't have money to pay, but the driver waved me off. "Whatever you're running from, I hope you make it," she said. I walked into the building and asked for Sarah Barrett. They made me wait for 30 minutes, sitting in the lobby with the blood vials hidden in my jacket. Every second felt like an hour. What if Nathan got here first? What if his lawyers found a way to suppress this evidence too? Finally, Sarah appeared. Her face was pale. "Camilla, we need to talk." My heart sank. "What happened?" "Come with me." She led me to an interrogation room. When the door closed, she turned to face me. "Nathan's lawyers have filed new charges against you: breaking and entering, theft of private property, violating the restraining order. There's a warrant for your arrest. I have evidence, proof of everything. It doesn't matter if you obtained it illegally. Anything you took from that storage unit without a warrant could be inadmissible. Then get a warrant. The evidence is there. Richard Westbrook's DNA, video proof of Nathan's blackmail, everything. We're working on it. But Nathan's legal team is already filing motions to block any search. They're claiming the storage unit contains private family documents protected by attorney-client privilege. It could take weeks to sort out. We don't have weeks. I know. I pulled the blood vials and flash drive from my jacket. Then use these. I'm giving them to you voluntarily. Test the DNA. Watch the videos. He can't block that. Sarah took them carefully. This could work. But you need to turn yourself in. The warrant means you're a fugitive. If you run, it'll look like consciousness of guilt. If I turn myself in, Nathan wins. If you run, he definitely wins. I sat down heavily. After everything, I was going to jail again. All the evidence in the world didn't matter if Nathan's lawyers could suppress it or delay it or twist it. "There's something else," Sarah said quietly. "Your parents' company is bankrupt. An audit uncovered massive embezzlement. Nathan had been stealing from them for 3 years. They're losing everything. Their house, their assets, all of it. I should have felt satisfaction, but I just felt empty. They'd treated me terribly my whole life, but they were still victims of Nathan's cruelty. When they found out," Sarah continued, "your mother tried to call you. She wanted to apologize. Your father wouldn't let her. Too little, too late. But some small part of me, the part that still remembered being a little girl, desperate for her parents' approval, felt a flicker of something. Not forgiveness, but perhaps the possibility of it, someday. I'll turn myself in," I said. "But promise me you'll test that DNA. Promise me you'll watch those videos." "I promise." She called for officers to take me into custody. As they handcuffed me, I wondered if this was really the end. If Nathan had finally won completely. If I'd spend the next decade in prison while he lived free, enjoying the money he'd stolen from me. The officers led me out of the room. In the hallway, I saw someone who made me stop in my tracks. Nathan stood there with his lawyers, smiling. "Hello, sister," he said. "Ready to finally give up?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't see the golden child or the successful brother. I saw a small, scared man who'd built his entire identity on lies and theft, who'd destroyed everyone around him because he couldn't stand the thought of being ordinary. "I've already won," I told him. "You just don't know it yet." His smile faltered. Just for a second, I saw doubt flicker across his face. Then the officers took me away, and I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, the truth would finally come out, that justice would finally be served. But I'd learned not to count on hope. Hope was a dangerous thing for someone like me. They put me in a holding cell at the FBI building, not the county jail. Sarah said it was for my protection while they processed the evidence. I sat on the metal bench, exhausted beyond measure, and waited. Hours passed, then a day. I slept fitfully, waking every time a door opened, wondering if it was someone coming to tell me Nathan had won again. On the third day, Sarah appeared at the cell door. Her expression was unreadable. "The DNA results came back," she said. My heart stopped. 99.9% match. You're definitively Richard Westbrook's biological daughter. I couldn't breathe. After everything, after all the fighting and doubt and fear, here was proof. Scientific, undeniable proof. And the videos? I asked. We watched all of them. They show clear evidence of Nathan's blackmail attempt, his knowledge of the switched birth, his plan to steal the inheritance. Combined with the other evidence we've gathered, we have enough to charge him with multiple federal crimes. So you're arresting him? We already did. 2 hours ago. He's in custody. The relief hit me like a wave. I started crying, great heaving sobs that came from somewhere deep inside. Sarah unlocked the cell and sat beside me, letting me cry on her shoulder. It's over, she said. You're free. All charges against you are being dropped. The federal prosecutors worked fast after that. With the DNA evidence, Richard's videos, and the electronic trail Nathan had left, they built an overwhelming case. Nathan's lawyers tried every trick they knew, but there was no way around the facts. The fake Camilla who'd claimed the inheritance was tracked down in Argentina. She was brought back to testify against Nathan in exchange for a reduced sentence. She confirmed everything. How Nathan had recruited her, coached her, given her the stolen documents. How they'd split the money, and she'd fled the country. The FBI recovered most of the $200 million from offshore accounts. It had been frozen during the investigation, waiting for the rightful heir to be identified. Margaret Sutton came out of witness protection to testify. She was older than I'd imagined, frail but fierce. She told the court about Richard's search for his daughter, about how she'd promised him she'd find me and protect me after his death. She'd fulfilled that promise. The trial took 3 weeks. I sat in the courtroom every day, watching Nathan's facade crumble piece by piece. His Harvard education, his business success, his family's wealth, none of it mattered in the face of evidence. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They found him guilty on all counts: wire fraud, identity theft, extortion, money laundering, attempted murder, kidnapping. The charges kept coming. At sentencing, the judge looked at Nathan with disgust. You are a predator who targeted your own family, she said. You tried to steal not just money, but identity, dignity, and justice. This court sentences you to 45 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Nathan showed no emotion as they led him away in handcuffs. He didn't look at me once. My parents' case was more complicated. The investigation revealed Nathan had embezzled $3 million from the family company over the years. The company was seized as part of the criminal case. My parents faced bankruptcy. After the sentencing, my mother approached me outside the courthouse. Dad stood behind her, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Camilla, she said, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. We didn't know. I looked at her, at this woman who'd raised me but never loved me. You knew I was different from the day I was born. You knew I didn't fit. But instead of loving me anyway, you made me feel worthless. We were wrong. So wrong. Is there any chance you could forgive us? I thought about it. Really thought about it. They'd given Nathan every advantage, and me every obstacle. They'd believed his lies and dismissed my truth. They'd signed papers to have me committed, stood by while he destroyed my life. But they were also victims of Nathan's manipulation, and holding on to anger would only poison me further. I don't forgive you, I said honestly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I don't wish you harm. I hope you find a way forward. Dad tried to speak, but I walked away before he could. Some wounds were too deep for words to heal. The Westbrook estate lawyers contacted me the next day. With the DNA proof and the criminal convictions, there was no question about my claim. Richard's fortune was mine. The $200 million Nathan had stolen was being returned. Additionally, Richard's remaining estate, his properties, investments, and shares in Westbrook Pharmaceuticals totaled another $150 million. I was worth $350 million. The number was incomprehensible. I'd gone from sleeping in my car with $67 to being one of the wealthiest women in America. I sat in the lawyer's office, looking at the paperwork, and thought about Richard, the father I'd never known, the man who'd searched for me his entire life and died before we could meet. "He left you something else," James Pemberton said, pulling out a sealed letter. "Instructions that it'd only be given to you if you were found and verified." I opened it with shaking hands. The letter was handwritten, dated a week before Richard's death. "My dear Camilla, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get to meet you in this life. That breaks my heart more than you can know. But I hope you found happiness, found people who love you for who you are. The money I'm leaving you isn't to define you, it's to give you freedom. Freedom to be whoever you want to be, to help whoever you want to help, to live the life you deserve. I was never there to protect you growing up, but I can protect you now. Use this gift wisely. Use it to build something beautiful. And know that somewhere, your father loved you with his whole heart, even though we never met. I'll be watching over you, always. Love, Dad." I cried reading it. Cried for the father I'd never known, for the childhood I'd lost, for all the years of feeling like I didn't belong. But they were cleansing tears, healing tears. 6 months later, I stood in Richard's former office, my office now. I was the CEO of Westbrook Pharmaceuticals, and I'd proven myself more than capable. The board had been skeptical at first, but I'd studied business, learned every aspect of the company, and made smart decisions that increased profits while also increasing the company's charitable work. Margaret Sutton visited me often. She'd become a mentor, a friend, almost a grandmother. She told me stories about Richard, filling in the gaps of the father I'd never met. "He'd be so proud of you," she said one afternoon, sitting in my office with tea and cookies. "I hope so. I know so. You're everything he hoped you'd be. Smart, compassionate, strong." Amanda Walsh had become a friend too. She'd fought for me when no one else would, and I'd never forget that. I'd established a foundation to support her civil rights work, ensuring other people trapped in impossible situations would have someone to fight for them. The Richard Westbrook Foundation for Lost Children launched in the fall. It helped kids in foster care, supported families torn apart by hospital errors, funded research into preventing switched-at-birth incidents. It was my way of honoring Richard and helping others who'd experienced what I had. The foundation's launch gala was held at a museum in Manhattan. Donors, press, supporters filled the grand hall. I stood at the podium to give my speech, looking out at hundreds of faces. 6 months ago, I began. I was sleeping in my car with $67 to my name. I'd been told my entire life that I was less than, that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't measure up to expectations. I'd lost everything and everyone, but I learned something important through that darkness. Your worth isn't determined by what others say about you. It's not determined by your bank account or your family name or your accomplishments. Your worth is inherent. You are valuable simply because you exist. I told my story, the whole thing. The switched birth, Nathan's betrayal, the fight for justice. People listened in silence, many with tears streaming down their faces. "The truth always comes out eventually," I said. "It might take time. It might require fighting battles you never imagined. But if you hold on to your truth, if you refuse to let others define you, you will prevail. Justice delayed is not justice denied. It's justice preparing to arrive in force." The applause was thunderous. People stood, clapping and crying. I felt a sense of peace I'd never experienced before. After the speech, I mingled with guests. They wanted to shake my hand, tell me their stories, thank me for giving them hope. Each conversation reminded me why I'd fought so hard. Later, standing alone for a moment, I looked at the photo I carried everywhere. Richard holding baby me at the hospital, the only picture that existed of us together. "I did it, Dad," I whispered. "I found my way home." I thought about Nathan in his prison cell. Part of me wanted to hate him, to revel in his downfall. But mostly I just felt sorry for him. He'd had everything, genuine advantages and opportunities, but it hadn't been enough. His greed and cruelty had destroyed him. I'd had nothing, but I'd built everything. That was the difference between us. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. "Watching you on the news. Richard would be so proud. I'm proud too. Love you, dear." I smiled and typed back, "Love you too." The foundation would help thousands of children. The company would continue Richard's work, making medicine accessible. I would use my voice and resources to fight for justice and truth. But more than any of that, I'd found something I'd searched for my entire life. I'd found myself, found my worth, found my place in the world. I was Camilla Westbrook, daughter of Richard Westbrook, survivor, fighter, victor. And finally, after 28 years of not belonging, I was home. The gala continued around me, but I stepped out onto the museum's terrace. The New York City lights spread out before me, millions of stories happening in millions of windows, each person fighting their own battles, searching for their own truth. I raised my glass of champagne to the sky, to Richard, to everyone who'd helped me, to the journey itself. "Thank you," I said to the universe, "for everything, even the hard parts, especially the hard parts, because the hard parts had made me who I was, strong, compassionate, unbreakable. Nathan had tried to destroy me, and instead he'd forged me into something stronger than I'd ever imagined I could be. That was my victory. Not the money, not the company, not even the justice. My victory was becoming myself, fully and completely, and knowing my own worth regardless of what anyone else thought. And that was something no one could ever take away. So, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong? Like no matter what you did, you'd never be good enough? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Someone who was supposed to love you? If so, please share your story in the comments. You're not alone. Your truth matters. Your worth is real. And I promise you, if you keep fighting, justice will come. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about people who fought impossible battles and won. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they know. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this journey. I hope you found something here that speaks to your own heart, your own struggles, your own victories. Remember, you are not defined by what others say about you. You are not your worst moment or your biggest failure. You are defined by how you rise after you fall, how you fight when everything seems lost, how you hold on to truth when everyone tells you to let go. Your story isn't over. The best chapters might still be ahead. Keep fighting, keep believing, keep being you. Until next time, take care of yourselves. You're worth fighting for.